Hey there, welcome to this video where I'm going to teach you how you can deploy your full stack Spring Boot application with database into cloud for free. Yes, you heard that right, absolutely for free without entering any sort of credit card information or debit card information. We are not going to enter any sort of payment details, but yet we would be allowed to deploy our application for free. So watch this video till the very end because there is a lot of information jam-packed. And if you are the kind of person who keeps building small POCs or small applications that you want others to access over the internet, then this video is for you. Of course, you have AWS. So a lot of students reached out to me and they said, hey, like we deploy on AWS, but AWS has a very generous free tier. But the thing is, it needs my credit card, debit card information, and it's once the free tier is exhausted, I'm being charged on usage basis. Okay, so they are looking for more something beyond AWS, and that's what this video covers, right? So what I'm going to show you is we'll have a very simple application that would have a React frontend. It would have a Spring Boot backend, and it would also do the job of interacting with the database. So you have all three components like the React application, the Spring Boot backend, and the database. So we'll deploy the React application onto a server, a separate server. We'll have the Spring Boot backend being deployed to a separate server, right? It would be a backend service that we'll build out. And you have the database that will also deploy over the internet, okay, so that the front end and backend can access it. So that's what this video is going to cover. So do watch it till the very end, and goes without saying, like if you have not liked, subscribed, please make sure you do so. And in the comment, let me know who you are, where you're joining in from, and what sort of videos you wish to see on this channel. So without a further ado, let's jump right in. So right now, what we are going to take a look at is an application which has React as the front end, Spring Boot as the back end, and we also have database, which is PostgreSQL database. All right. So this is the application. It's a single page application with nothing complex. And here you have a text box, as you can see, where you can enter the name of the item. So I can say item 1, and I can add the item, and that item will appear here in the list. Okay. And even if you refresh, the data is persistent because this data is being stored in the database. Okay. Now let me show you the database here. Okay. So this is the database. You can see I have this database in the PostgreSQL. This is PHPMyAdmin, which is connected to Postgres database. And sorry, not PHPMyAdmin. This is PGAdmin. Sorry about that. Okay. And here you can see this database items DB. Within that, I have this table. So there is a single table called item. And if you refresh this, okay, because I just entered the data. Okay, let me run this query again. So you can see item 1 over here. So the item that we added from the front end is being saved or persisted into the database, right? And this is PostgreSQL over here. Okay. You can see there were a couple of items already added, test and test2, and that is something that, so you can see there were already a couple of items that were already added, okay, and you could also see them here on the front end, which is React based, okay. So yeah, this is the application. Now let us take a look at the React code, or before taking a look at the React code, let us talk about Spring Boot first. So this is a very simple Spring Boot application that I have, okay. And here, if you see in the pom.xml, I have few dependencies added, all right. Now these dependencies are really straightforward. I'm using Lombok, okay. I am essentially having JPA, PostgreSQL, okay. Nothing else. Pretty simple, straightforward. All right. Now, if you come to the application here, there are quite a few files over here. First, we'll start with the controller. Controller is very straightforward. Okay. So I am having two endpoints over here. One is the post mapping and other one is the get mapping. Okay. And both these mappings are being, are at the endpoint API/items. Okay. Now what I'm doing is I am having these two methods, create item and get all items. And I'm making use of repository directly over here, okay, to save the item and to find or fetch all the items. All right. So here, if you go to repository, okay, this is making use of JPA repository that you can see, okay. And then I have item model over here, okay. This is the entity item, okay. You can see it's being marked as entity, and I'm having like few fields, and these are being persisted to the database, okay. You can see over here. Now these are the two fields that you will also see in the database, like the ID and the name, okay. That is what you see, ID and name, and the table name is item. There is only one table over here, item, okay. So very straightforward, okay, nothing complex over here. I just wanted to demonstrate like how a database backed application in Spring Boot with React as a front end can be deployed, okay. So here if you see, I'm also having a configuration file which is for the course configuration. So since we are doing a cross origin request, which means that our front end is running on localhost 3000 over here, right? And we are doing an API call on localhost 8080, right? So I need to tell, or I need to enable or allow all the requests or all the cross origin requests coming from this particular endpoint over here, okay? So that is what I have done here, okay? And you can see I've allowed all the methods, as you can see over here, okay? So this is done. And yeah, I am all set. So I am running this application. There are no more files, as you can see. I have application.properties, which I forgot about. So in application.properties, I am connecting to my local Postgres instance along with the relevant properties over here. So it's a pretty straightforward and very simple application that I have right now in place. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to give you an overview of the React app. So this is the React app over here, and this is the default generated React app with changes only being done in app.js and app.css. Okay. So in app.css, I've added some CSS that will beautify the application, basic CSS, nothing complex. And then in app.js, I have a few states. Okay. When defining the app components, I'm defining few states like items, the name of the item, and the message that I want to display to the user. Okay. And if you scroll down here, I am rendering this component interface like this. So I'm having the header over here, then the input text, which you see, which is being mapped to the name of the value that the user is entering. Then I have the button, add item. I'm displaying the message over here, and I am rendering the items as well. Okay. Now, if you scroll up over here, I'm making two API calls over here. One is to fetch the items. So I'm getting all the items from the backend, and I'm adding the item from the front end to the backend. Okay. So I'm making this post request wherein I'm passing this item over here. You can see in the body. All right. So this is being done. And whenever you get the list of items, I'm updating items over here in this state. And this state, if you come over here, scroll down, I'm rendering the state, like whatever is there in the state, as a list over here. Okay. So the list is being rendered this way on the interface, and then you also have this input box that is being mapped to this name state. Okay. So this is the application, very simple, very straightforward, and this is the result that you're seeing on my screen. All right. Now this is the application that we are going to deploy, and let's talk about the deployment and what all services we are going to use and for what purpose. So right now what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have prepared our front end and back end to be deployed to the production. And what this means is here we are making use of the database URL, the database password, username and all, right? But this might not be the same for production. So we need to make sure that we convert these into variables and we fetch the values of this externally rather than hard coding it into application properties. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a new env file over here. Okay. So I am coming over here. I'll say create a new file .env. Now this is going to have all the configuration that will be picked up by application properties, and it will have the definition of the environmental variables that I'm having over here. So I can say, I can convert this, I can cut this value over here. Okay. Oops, so cut this value over here and move this to env and say data source underscore URL, and this is the value for data source URL. Okay, I can say data source user. Okay, and I can even have data source password over here. Okay, so data source password. Okay, something like this, and I can cut the values from here and move it over here, and I can even move this thing over here. Okay. So right now it's asking me to install plugins to support env files, but I'm not going to do that. You can do that if you wish to, all right? But right now I've moved these three things into an external file, and I would be doing the job of linking them over here. So I can have a curly brace like this and a $sign over here, and I can put in the name of the environmental variable over here, the name of the variable essentially. And I'll copy this. So it's best to copy the names like this, okay, so that you don't have any sort of typos over here. Okay, I'll also copy this and I'll copy this. Okay, this is done. Now if I run the application, I am going to get an error. Okay, so let me show the error to you, and let us also understand how we can fix that. So this is the error. Okay, and of course if you scroll up, the error would clearly tell you that you can see okay, here, let me scroll up. Where is the actual error? So here you can see failed to initialize, and basically this it's failing to initialize the URL, or it's giving us the error for data source URL. It should start with JDPC. Okay, so clearly it is not able to identify these parameters or these variables that we have set over here. Oops, I added admin@123. It should not be the case. I am so sorry. So it should be this thing over here. Okay. So if you're copy pasting, make sure you copy paste the right thing. Okay. So it's clearly not able to identify what this is. Okay. And we need to have a way to tell during the runtime that, hey, these are the values for these variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. Okay. Luckily, we have a way to do this in IntelliJ. I'm going to go to edit configurations over here. Okay. The moment you click on edit configurations, you can modify this existing configuration. This was auto created, or you can duplicate this over here. Okay. So you can call this env. I'll call this env. Okay. It's totally up to you. You can modify the existing one as well. And over here, you have an option to provide the environmental variables. Okay. Now you can also enter. So if you click edit, you can edit the environmental variables. Okay, or you can also add an env file over here. Okay, you can see browse for env files and scripts. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go inside my application, and I'm going to navigate to the env file that we have just created, and I'll say okay. You can see. Or you can alternatively add the env variables over here directly by clicking on this plus. Okay, that is also a possibility, but I'm not doing that. I have a env file because an env file is easier and better to manage. I'll say apply. Okay, be sure to click apply. Don't directly click OK. Okay, otherwise the changes won't be applied. I'll say OK, and I'm going to run this. Now let us see whether it runs fine. But when you are running, be sure to select the one that you have just created, env. If you have edited the one that was existent, that's completely fine. Okay, no issues as such. But you can see over here the application is running, which means that we have now externalized these things like URL, the username and password. Why have we done so? There is a reason. There is a reason why we are doing everything. Okay. The reason for doing this was because whenever you move to production, this data source URL is going to be different. Password and username is also going to be different. So it's best that you don't hard code this stuff, right? Also, when you deploy to production, one more thing is going to be different, which is the front-end URL. So ideally, what we should be doing is we should also be externalizing or picking this thing from the environmental variables Okay, so that is something also we need to do. So what I'm going to do is I am going to make use of environmental variables over here for this thing as well. I'm going to cut this. I'll come over here. Okay, I'll say over here front end dot URL is equal to, and I'm going to say dollar here front end underscore URL. Okay, and here in the env file I'm going to say front end underscore URL, and this is a value, right? Now over here, this thing, so this would run, but this thing needs to be added over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of this value annotation over here. Okay, so okay, it's capital V. Okay, and I'm going to use a syntax. I'm going to say dollar, and over here something like this. Okay, so what this is going to do is this is going to pick the value, like this value from application.properties, and it is going to inject it over here in the variable. So I'm going to have a variable over here, string front end URL, something like this. Okay, and I'm going to make use of this over here. Now this we did because we didn't want to hard code localhost over here, because it's common, like during development you will hard code everything and you will get the POC ready. But when you move to production, this should ideally be picked up from application.properties, and here you should be having you should be externalizing this. Okay, so this should come in from environmental variables. Now if I run this again, okay, it's absolutely going to run fine, and our application in the front end is also going to work perfectly okay. So if you come over here, okay, let me come over here, let me see, let us test this. So I'll add 1 2 2 3. You can see this is working fine, which means the configuration we did is also working fine. Now the problem over here in our front end is we are hard coding the backend URL. This will change, right? Once you deploy the application, this will change. So it's important that this should also come in from the .env file, and it should be converted to the environmental variables. Okay, so here what I would do is in the root of my project, I'm going to add a new file over here. This is the new file button. Oops, I don't want to add it under src, so I'm going to add it under the root. So I can say .env over here, something like this. Okay, and I can say react underscore app underscore API underscore URL. So this is the URL for my API, and I'm going to take this, in fact cut this, come over here and add it over here. Okay, now this is added as a variable in .env file. Now how do I access this? Okay, so to access this, we need to update our React code over here so that it refers to that variable. Okay, what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to say, so I'm going to make use of this over here. I'm going to say dollar, okay, and I'm going to say process .env react underscore app, and I should have actually this name over here. Okay, this is what I'm going to have here. Okay, and if you want, you can do console.log. Let us try doing console.log over here for this thing. Okay, so this is done. Okay, and I can say here, so this is the syntax over here. I'm making use of process.env.react app API URL. So this is the variable name. I've saved this. Now if you come over here, okay, let me go to inspect. Okay, of course this would fail, like, so we've added this in the fetch items. Okay, so wait a minute. So it's undefined right now. Okay, it's coming in as undefined. There is some problem maybe. Let me check. So it worked this time. What I did is I restarted the server. All right, so I believe you need to restart the server so that it picks up the .env files, and so it worked for me. And what I did is I restarted the server. So you need to restart the server, I believe, to get the .env file picked up by the server. Okay, so you can see it's clearly getting us the value over here. Is printing. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this thing here. Okay, I'm going to cut this. We don't need to print this onto the console. Okay, but we need to replace this with backticks over here. Okay, and I need to add this thing over here. Okay, something like this. So this is what is going to be the syntax. I'll copy this over here and we'll add it over here for this thing. Okay, this URL is same, just the type differs. So here it's post and here it's normal get. Okay, so this changes have been done. All right, and I'm just going to collapse this over here. Now if I come over here, let me refresh. This should work absolutely okay. You can see no errors as such, and I can say test 00112. Okay, and if I add the item, you can see the item is added successfully. So this is working perfectly fine. All right, now how this will benefit is tomorrow if we deploy this onto the server, then we can add the React app API URL as the environmental variable on the server, and we can have the new API endpoint. Okay, so basically you don't need to redeploy by updating the URL that is hard coded. You can just change it with just configuration change on the server. Okay, that is a benefit over here. So I hope you have been able to follow along as to what we are doing, why we are doing, and I hope this is useful. Now first we are going to talk about the deployment of the backend. All right, Spring Boot, which I mean. So where are we going to deploy our Spring Boot application? So to deploy our Spring Boot application, we are going to make use of this service called Render. So head over to render.com, or you can search for Render Hosting. So you'll be taken to this page, and this is a service that allows you to build, deploy, and scale your web applications. All right, and you can see they allow you to deploy web servers, static files, Docker container, cron jobs. Okay, you can deploy in seconds. So you can go through their website. They also have database in the cloud. If you go to the pricing tab, okay, let's talk about why we're using this. So it allows you to host your website essentially for free. Like they have a $0 plan wherein you can host the web services. Okay, and you can have it up and running on the server. Okay, but the limitation over here is, which I think you should be aware, is after, if there is no activity or no one hitting your server or using the APIs, then the server will go to sleep. Okay, so next time when you try to access the APIs, it will take some time to boot up and launch your application. All right, so that is something that you should know. But what we are going to do is we are going to Dockerize our application, our Spring Boot application, and we are going to deploy it here on Render. All right, so what we need to do is we need to get started, and I will encourage you to get started with creating an account. Okay, so set up an account here using your email ID and password, and then we will begin the deployment. So I do have the Render account set up. You can see over here I'm on the dashboard, and I just used I just used the Google sign-in option, and I was not asked for a lot of questions. All right, now you can see these all services is what you can deploy over here. All right, and we're going to make use of Docker over here. So we will be needing Docker as well. So I would encourage you to install and set up Docker onto your system. So you can download for Windows, Docker Desktop for Windows, or you can download for Linux or Mac, depending on which chip you have. Okay, now Docker Desktop, with Docker Desktop you will get all of this along with the Docker CLI client. Okay, so this is helpful for running commands or Docker commands from your command line. All right, so just install this, okay, and just start Docker over here. Now what I've done is I have already installed Docker Desktop, and I have it running onto my system. You can see over here. All right, so it's important that you have Docker Desktop up and running so that you can start deploying your application. But what we would do is we would come over here, okay, to our Spring Boot project, and we'll begin setting up the application and preparing it for deployment. So first thing, I'm going to head over to the terminal here. Okay. And when starting the terminal, I want to make a note of this, that it's Windows PowerShell over here. Now, depending on your operating system, okay, you will see different terminal open up, or if you want a specific type of terminal over here, like command prompt get bash, you can do it within IntelliJ. All right. Now, first thing is I'm going to build the application. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of Maven to clean the project and convert it into a distributable jar. So here under target folder, if you see under target, so this is the auto-generated folder. This contains all the generated files. Here I will have a jar file. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of mvnw clean package. Okay. Now you can install Maven onto your system to create a jar file. But when you create a Spring Boot project, you get something called as Maven wrapper over here. You can see. So we are making use of this Maven wrapper, and we are cleaning and we are packaging our application. Okay. So I'm going to run this. We'll wait for a while until this entire thing works up. All right. And we will get an error. It's likely. You can see. Yeah, we get an error. And if you scroll up, let us see what the error is over here. Okay, so there is quite a few errors, and the error is about this not being identified. So what happens is when a jar file is being created, okay, the application starts and then the jar file is being created. But right now what is happening is it's not able to identify these things that we have defined here, right? So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up these variables on the command line. Now, depending on the operating system that you're working on, okay, there are different syntax to do so. So here, if you see on Linux, if you're on Linux or Mac OS, here is how you can set up the environmental variables on command line. Okay, you also have Windows-based thing over here. Okay, this is a Windows-based command. Okay, this is again Windows PowerShell-based command. So this is for command prompt and this is for PowerShell. Now, when running this command, I asked you to make a note of what type of command line you are on, and that was for this very reason. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file here. Okay, and since I'm on PowerShell, I'm going to take this syntax here. Okay, paste it over here. Okay, and you can make a note of the syntax. It's set variable name equal to export variable name equal to for Linux or Mac, and here for PowerShell this is the thing. All right, so here I'm going to set all the variables that I have added into this particular env file. Okay, because this is what we need. Okay, so I'll come over here and I'll paste it over here. Okay, and this needs to go in inverted quotes is what it says. Okay, so let us set it that way. And over here, URL, also URL I need to update. Okay, and this is something that I'll paste over here. Okay, so this is done. I am in this syntax now, and I'm going to copy this. Okay, and I'm going to come over here, head over to terminal again. I'm going to paste this over here. Okay, so it got pasted at the bottom, it seems like. Yeah, I'm going to press enter. Okay, this is done. So all the variables are set now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this command. So you can see this command also varies. So if you're on Windows command prompt, this is how you will run mvnw package. Okay, if I'm on PowerShell, so I'm going to run it this way. Okay, so I'll paste it and enter. So now we'll wait for a while until the jar file is built in. Okay, and this will take some time, but we'll get success. And you can see over here, I got build success. All right, and now if you go over here to the target folder, here you will see quite a lot of files here being generated. Along with that, you will see the jar file. So you can see sb deployment 001-snapshot.jar. Okay, so this is the jar file that our application is now packaged into. All right, now we need to Dockerize our application. So for that, we are going to add a new Docker file. Okay, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call this as Docker file. So I'm going to say Docker and file over here. Okay, it's created, and you can see plugin supporting Docker files found. So you can install a Docker plugin if you want to. Okay, and I'm not doing that right now. Okay, but over here you need to add the code essentially within this particular file. Now I'm going to add this code, okay, into my Docker file. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add it over here. Okay, let us go through this file and understand what this file does. Okay, so this is a Docker file that is used to create a Docker image of our Spring Boot application. Okay, and here on the first line, what we're doing is we specify that the build will use the official Maven image of OpenJDK 17. Okay, and this includes everything that is necessary for building a Java-based application. So I'm making use of OpenJDK 17 over here. Then I'm setting the working directory over here inside the container to that of /app over here. Okay, this is where all the subsequent commands will be executed. Then I'm saying like copy the pom.xml over here from our local machine to the /app directory inside the container, and this file contains the configuration and the dependencies needed to build the application pom.xml. Then I'm saying run Maven dependencies. So this is going to download all the dependencies that is defined in pom.xml so that they are available offline. Okay. Then I'm copying the entire src directory from my local machine to the app/src directory inside the container. Okay. And then I'm saying here I'm executing the Maven command to clean the project, compile the source code, and package it into the jar again. So we have already done this, but I'm again doing this over here. Okay, and then I'm also telling it to skip the tests over here to speed up the build process. You can do so when you are cleaning and packaging the application into jar. Okay, and then over here I'm telling that the run stage. So whenever it's running, it will make use of official OpenJDK slim image here, and this is JDK 17. Okay, and then I'm setting the work directory again to that of app for running, and over here then I am actually copying the jar file produced in the build stage from app/target to that of this location over here. Okay, so you can see over here this is the file name. Okay, so I need to specify the file name over here. Now whatever the file name is, so the file name for our jar file is over here, and I'm going to say, so there's no rename option. Okay, I'm going to copy this. Let us see if it populates the name. You can see it populated the name. I'm going to remove .jar. Okay, so have the jar file name, expose 8080, and you also need to add the same thing over here, the jar file name. Okay, so I'm exposing 8080. This is a port that I want to expose from the container. Okay, and then here this is the entry point. So this is the command that will run the application. So I'm running the jar file inside the container. That is what I'm doing. Okay, so this is done. Now what we need to do is I am going to build and create an image using this Docker file. Now once this Docker file is added, I'll head over to the terminal and I'm going to start setting up the Docker image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this. I'm going to say Docker build, okay, -t, and I'm going to specify the name over here. So I can say demo deployment, and I'm going to specify dot over here. Okay, this is a command and I'll run this. Okay, so this will do some processing. Okay, you'll have to wait for a while. You will see quite a lot of processing happening onto your local machine. Okay, and then the image will be ready. Now keep in mind one thing, whenever you are running the CLI, there is a possibility you might be asked, CLI meaning whenever you are running the local command of Docker, you might be asked for authentication. Okay, so if you are asked for authentication, if you are being asked for authentication, just authenticate yourself. Now, once you're done generating the image, okay, we made use of this command, you need to tag the application. Okay, so what I will do is I'll say Docker tag over here, and demo deployment, I'll say decode 007. So this is my Docker Hub username. Okay, so we need to tag it with username / the image name. Okay, so I can say demo deployment latest. Oops, I missed a colon latest, something like this. Now, decode 007 because the account that I have signed in with over here. Okay, so here if you go to, if you click over here, okay, this is my Docker Hub account. Okay, now here we are going to push our repository. Now what this means is it's like a Docker registry where we will have our Docker image and you can pull it from anywhere in the world. Okay, so you can see over here decode 007 is what my username is. So I'm going to come over here. I'm saying decode 007 / the app name and latest. This is what I'm tagging it with. I'll tag this. Okay, this is done. And then I can say Docker push demo -deployment. Something like this. And the moment you say push, you'll see it's preparing. And okay, requested access to the resource is denied. So I don't know what's the problem there. I believe my session is not authenticated. So I just did Docker login. Let me run it again. Let me try pushing it again. It should work this time. Okay. Request access to the resources denied. There is some problem. Okay. So I'm facing this problem because of usage of incorrect username probably. So I'm making use of DE over here and then code, but the username is decode. Okay. So that's a problem most likely. So I'll come over here. Okay. I'll remove E from here. I'll tag it in the right way and then I'll try pushing it. Now let's see if we are able to get through. Okay. It's still not working. Alright, so it worked for me, and the reason was earlier I was running the push command without the username. Okay, so I was saying docker push demo -deployment, right? I added latest in the end and still it was not taking. You can see the error here. What I did is I added username. So docker push decode 007 / the name latest, and this worked. You can see. It's pushing right now. You can see it will take some time depending on the kind of internet connection and the kind of system that you have. All right. So we'll wait for a while until this entire thing is pushed to Docker Hub. Now you can see over here the push is successful. All right. And if you come over here to the browser and if you do a refresh, okay, you'll see demo deployment appear over here. You can see this is appeared over here. All right. And now you can make use of this to deploy on render. All right. So here on the render dashboard, you can create a new web service. Okay. And when deploying the web service, you can deploy it using the Docker image over here. Okay. So you can specify the Docker image URL and you can do the deployment. All right. But before deploying, or we can even deploy it right now. Okay. Let me get this. So I'll copy this URL over here. Okay, and you can see the public view. So if you click on the public view, you will come over here. Okay, this is the public view. Okay, so I'll come over here, and here from the dashboard, I'll create a new web service. I'll go to existing image. Okay, and you can add a credential. You'll have to add the credential over here, which means you'll have to sign up into Docker Hub. Okay, so what I will do is I'll add a credential. Okay, and I will say Docker. Okay, I'll add a username and a personal access token or a password here. Okay, so what we need to do is, so in fact, I think we don't need to add the credentials. You need to add the credential if you have a private repository. Okay, but this repository will check if it's private or public. So here, if you come to our repositories tab, within demo deployment, Okay, if you click on settings, if you see over here, this repository is public. Okay, so this is a public repository. All right, and what we need over here is we need the link. Okay, so what I would do is I would come over here. Okay, and let us try getting this link over here. So after copying this, we will switch over to render, and here you can see the format in which it is expecting us to add the repository URL. Okay, so you can see docker.io/library/nginx:\latest. All right. So what I'm going to say over here is I'm going to make use of the similar syntax. Okay, I'm going to say docker.io. Okay, slash. I'll paste this thing over here. I'll add :latest. Okay, this is done. And you can see there was a small progress which checked for this image. Okay, and we get a tick, which means it's able to access this repository. Now I'll say connect. Okay, and it fetched it is automatically giving us the name and everything for this this web service. Okay, so I'll keep this to, you can rename this. Okay, so I'll just keep demo deployment :latest. That's absolutely fine. You can select the plan. Of course, we'll go ahead with free plan, and you'll see free plan in free instances pinned down after periods of inactivity. Okay, and they have some limitations, which is absolutely okay. All right, we are just doing POCs, and here you can add environmental variables. Okay, you remember, like we have a .env file. You can add all the variables over here and then deploy the web service. Okay, but the problem now is before deploying. Okay, let me tell you, before deploying here, we'll add this env, but we don't know the value of the server URL yet for the database, right? So for now, what I will do is I'll simply add these things over here. Okay, so add from env, and we'll paste this thing over here. I'll say add this. Okay, you can see this is added over here, and we'll say deploy the web service. Of course, this deployment is going to fail because localhost and all does not exist yet. Okay, but this will deploy, and we'll wait for a while, and then once we have the database set up, we'll update these environmental variables and we'll redeploy the service to get it up and running. Okay, so this will take a while. It is starting the service. There will be all the logs that will appear over here. So we'll wait for a while. Okay, and yeah, we can watch it deploy over here. So of course the database deployment, or sorry, not the database, the backend deployment will fail. Okay, because the database does not exist yet. Now to get this service up and running, we need a database in the cloud, and for that purpose we are going to make use of Neon database. Okay, now Neon, if you go to this website, if you search first of all Neon database on Google, okay, you're going to see this website neon.tech. Okay, so I'll encourage you to head over to this website. You can click over here, neon.tech, and you can read more about this. So what is this? This is a cloud-based PostgreSQL database service, and it is designed to provide scalable and reliable and easy to understand database solution for applications. Okay, so you can go through their website. Okay, there's a lot, but you can even check out their pricing and features. We'll go to pricing over here. Okay, and within pricing you'll see they have a good free plan. Now free plan is for 0.5 gigs of storage. Okay, and you can always upgrade to paid, but I'm not promoting them, so I'm not so they are not sponsors or anything of this. So $0 is a generous plan, I feel, and it's enough for small POC projects. Okay, so I'll say start for free, and you can actually sign up, in fact, without a credit card. Okay, so I'll simply create an account using one of my emails. Okay, and I'll simply sign up using Google over here. Okay, now it's asking me for the app name over here. Okay, so I can say demo deployment. You can call whatever you want to. You can add the database name. Okay, I can say first DB, something like that. Okay, or item DB, I can say. Okay, and you can have a hyphen here, and you can see I'll say create. Okay, so it is created and we are in. Boom. Right now over here you'll see like this is what the credential is. Okay, this is the credential. Okay, don't try to make use of my credentials. I'm just going to delete this once I'm done recording. Okay, so I'm going to reset this credentials. Don't worry about that. So don't try to make use of my credentials. Okay, try to use your own credentials. I'll copy this. Okay, over here, and let us analyze or let us check this out in a notepad. So I've brought this URL into my notepad. All right, and what I'll do over here is this is our actual database URL. Now we need to get this thing into this format, okay, which Spring Boot understands. All right, so I'll have JDBC PostgreSQL, and after that I'm going to have this entire string, okay, until this over here. I'm going to copy this, okay, and I'm going to replace this over here, something like this. Okay, so this becomes, okay, this becomes my data source URL. Okay, I also need the username and password over here. Okay, so this is what my database URL is. Okay, so I'll just cut this, I'll add it over here. Okay, now I need my user and password. Okay, so what is my user now? So I'll come over here. Okay, and you have this password appear over here. Okay, so you have username and password. So this is items DB owner is the username and this is the password. Okay, and if you see, this is the host over here, this entire thing. Okay, so from here, one second. So what we did is here we have actually added the username and password also. So I'll cut this, I'll move user over here, and this is the password part, right? I'll cut this as well. I'll add password over here. Okay, and I'll get rid of @ and colon over here. I hope this is making sense. Okay, so we simply got the host after @ this part, right? We simply got this host after @ which is this part, along with the database name items DB over here. Okay, so this is now our thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to my server and I'm going to paste all of this. Okay, so first I'll copy the data source URL. Okay, and over here, this is my server. I'm going to come here, environment. I'm going to add the data source URL. Okay, and then I need the, okay, this is the one DB items DB owner. Okay, I'll copy this password. I'll come over here. So database user. Sorry, I've not copied the password. I've copied the user, and now I'm copying the password. And now I'll add the URL password over here. Okay, so this is the password. So data source password, this is the URL, and this is the user. I'll save these changes. Okay, now let us go to logs, and you can see the service is starting now the moment we save the changes. Okay, let us wait and see if we are able to see a success over here. Okay, so early on we were seeing all the exceptions. You can see it's all failing, right? Ideally we should see success now. We'll wait for a while until the service starts. Until the service start, I would like to also tell you, like if you go to Neon console over here, you have this tables over here. Okay, so you won't see any sort of tables right now up here over here. You can see there are no tables in this database. Okay, but as soon as the deployment works fine, we will have JPA who will start creating the tables for us. Okay, so we'll wait for a while until that happens. You can see found one JPA interface and it's slowly beginning. Okay, let me do a refresh here. Do we see the tables? No tables yet. There's only one DB. Okay, so we'll wait for a while. Let's wait for a while until this runs successfully. So the application is up and running, you can see. Okay, and if you come over here on the Neon console, and I just did a refresh. Okay, and you could see like the table appear over here, item table. Okay, so this is working absolutely fine, and we have JPA in action who created the table for us. Okay, You can see ID and name are the columns here. All right. So our application is deployed. Congratulations. And we are on cloud right now. So now once your backend service is live, you're going to see this message, your service is live over here. And here in the events, if you see, you'll see this deploy live message. Okay. Now what we need to do is, I'll cancel this. So here you have this URL. Okay. So if I go to logs, or you see this URL at the top. Okay. This is the URL of your backend server. So I'll copy this and we can come over here to our front end. And right now, if you see, our front end is pointing to localhost, right? So I'll change this URL to that of the remote server, and I'll shut the server over here and I'll restart the service. Okay. After making any changes to environmental variables, be sure that you are restarting the service. Okay. Now over here, I'm going to restart the app. Okay. And what we can do is we can actually now see the application. We are pointing actually to production. Okay, so here if you see, over here you will see this is this production, and we are actually pointing from the production backend to this database in the cloud. Okay, so I can add an item name over here. Let me say test. Okay, or let's say new item over here. This is what I'll add. I'll say add. Okay. And you can see it got added successfully. No issues as such. You can see new item appear. Okay. Now if you go to Neon console over here, here is the refresh button. Okay, sorry, this is not refresh. This is actually history. Here is the refresh. Just refresh this, and you should see new item appear over here, right? So clearly we are able to make the changes now on the cloud, and everything is on the cloud except our front end, right? So for front end, what we need to do is you can actually deploy it over on render also. So here on render, if you come the render homepage, dashboard.render.com, you'll see this option, new option over here on the top right. So you can create a new static site. Okay, and you can deploy it from GitHub or like GitLab or Bitbucket, or you can even deploy a public Git repository. But I don't want to host my changes on GitHub, so I'll make use of something called as Netlify over here. Now, Netlify is a service that enables you to host your front end, and I use it for quite a few projects of mine. So I'll click over here, and you can go to sign up. You can read about Netlify over here. Okay, they have the pricing as well over here. They have $0 pricing. This is without any credit card, so you don't need any sort of credit card. So all the services that I've shown over here don't need credit card. They're free. Okay, so now here you need to create a free account. Okay, so just create a free account. Just go through the details if you wish to, and set up a free account, and I'll see you on the dashboard. So now over here, I'm on the Netlify dashboard. Okay, so if you're signing or using Netlify for the first time, it's likely that you will be asked for a few onboarding questions. But I'm a Netlify user, so I was not asked that much. But on this dashboard is where we are going to deploy our website. Okay. Now, what we need to do over here is we should have a option to add a new site. So you can see add a new site. So you can import an existing project. You can import it from GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, Azure, from wherever you want to. Okay. Or alternatively, I'll go back. Alternatively, I can start from a template, or I can deploy manually. Okay. So I can upload my files that I want to host manually over here. Okay. Now the question is, what should we upload over here? Should we upload our source code? Absolutely not. So we will have to first get the build folder for our React application. And to get the build folder, we'll need to run a command npm run build in the root directory of our project. Now this will give us the build folder. Now this is a build folder that we are supposed to upload on any cloud or production grade server, right? So you can see over here. Okay, this npm run build, it did some processing. It reduced the size of certain files. So what it does essentially is it will reduce the size of certain JavaScript, HTML, and CSS files, and it will give you a build folder. Okay, and how it will reduce the size? It will remove like unwanted spaces, comments, and all of that. You don't need all of that in production. You just need the source code, right? And you can see over here, the build folder is ready to be deployed. Okay, so what you can do over here is, this is a build folder. You can go and check out if you wish to. So you can see this is a HTML file, which is without any spaces over here. You can see this is the entire HTML file, right? You have under static, you have JavaScript files. Okay, this is what it's compiled to, or it's converted into. Okay, but this is what we'll be deploying. So what I would do is, I would come over here, okay, and I would open my folder here, the root folder of my project, you can see, and I'll drag drop this build folder over here. Okay, so you can just drag drop it, or alternatively what you can do is you can browse to upload. You can browse, you can go to build folder, select the build folder and just drop it. Now please don't refresh over here. You can see this message, please don't refresh. So do not refresh until it uploads. So it's pretty quick. You can see over here, this is the log. It initialized, built, deployed, cleanup, and there was some post processing, which is also complete. And these are your files that you have uploaded. You can see this. Okay. Now here you have an option to, so here if you come to site configuration, so this is your site. Okay, this is the name of your site, Serene-Llama-DDD785, a random site name. You can come over here and customize your site name if you wish to. So you can go to site configuration and here under site details. Okay, not over here, but somewhere it allows you to update or customize the name of the website. Okay, I don't see that option right now. All right, but if you go to deploys over here, okay, you have this URL that you see. So just open this URL. Okay, now this is a URL of the application, and if you see over here, you'll get this error that, hey, it has been blocked by CORS policy. Now of course it will be blocked because the front end does not know the URL of the backend does not know the URL of the front end. So I'll copy this and I'll head over to my render dashboard, and here under environment, I'm going to add the front end URL. Okay, I'll save the changes over here. Okay, so this is saved. We'll wait so if you go to events over here, you will see environment updated. And once the environment is updated, the server is normally restarted. So we'll wait until the server restarts. Okay, this should take a little bit of time because server restarts over here on render takes some time. So we'll wait for a while. Meanwhile, we'll also copy this. Okay, and we will add it over here in. So I'll go to deploy settings. We can add it in environmental variables over here. So I'll add a variable, or you can import it from the env file as well. Okay, so I'll simply copy this, something like this, and you can add it over here. Okay, so you can see the variable is set. Okay, so this is done. All right, we'll wait for the server to start. It should take some time. Okay, meanwhile we'll do some waiting. Now once this server is done, it's restarted, you can see this, your service is live. Come over here and refresh this and you should see a clean console now, right? And over here you will see new item because this is what we had saved early on. Okay, you can add more items over here, something like this. Okay, and you can see this is added, and if you come here in the database, this is done. Okay, so what we did over here is we made use of 3 services. One is render, other one is Netlify, and we made use of Neon database, and everything is in cloud and deployed for free. Okay, I'll also mention one more thing. We also made use of Docker over here, Docker and Docker Hub. All right, so quite a few things were involved, but yes, we are actually in production now. All right, so I hope you have been able to follow along, and I hope this was useful.